So in today's video, we're going to talk about how you can stop your Dachshund puppy from crying all through the night and get them to a point where they'll happily, calmly, quietly settle down and sleep through the night in peace. Welcome back to the Fenrir Dachshund Show. If you are new here, my name's Will, I'm a canine behaviourist and I'm the founder and CEO of FenrirCanineLeaders.com. This channel is dedicated to teaching you everything you could ever possibly want to know about the Dachshund breed and how to become a high-level canine leader that raises perfect Dachshund companions. So if you're a Dachshund fan, a lifelong lover, or thinking about getting your first one, then make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you can start that incredible journey. But without further ado, let's dive into today's video. And I've been going through my emails, and one theme that I'm noticing is coming up a lot, in particular with new Dachshund owners, is how much trouble and how difficult they're finding it getting their new Dachshund puppy to be able to sleep through the night. They're bringing the Dachshund home and it is just crying and barking and yapping all night long. So I thought, rather than answering every single email, we'll make a little video and then hopefully we can help as many people as possible who are struggling with this problem. Now, when you bring your new puppy home, and to be honest, the advice is pretty much the same across all breeds, Dachshunds included. So I'm going to give some kind of general advice that's applicable for all puppies, but everybody that's watching this that's getting their new Dachshund in particular or struggling with this is very much going to be relevant for you. So in my opinion, when I work with new clients, especially in terms of helping make sure that they get their training right the first time round, is I kind of give them two opportunities. We've got the tough love opportunity and the tough love process to being able to get them to sleep through the night, and then we've got the more softer approach, and we'll start with the tough love one. Now that is, you make a decision of where is it that you want your Dachshund to sleep long term. If that's down in a utility room, that's where it is. If it's in the kitchen, whether it's down in the living room, wherever it is, you make that decision before you ever bring the Dachshund home. And then from night one, you make sure that they have had all the food that they need, they've done plenty of exercise, they've been out to the toilet, so you know that they don't need anything, they've had food, they've had water, they've been to the toilet, they've done some exercise, and it is time for them to go to sleep and settle down for the night. You put them, whether it's in a bed, in a playpen, or in a crate. Again, we can talk more about that in a different video. I'm a big believer in crate training all puppies. I think it's incredible for them and for their happiness. It's not cruel whatsoever. But again, that is a topic for another video. But you put them in the room that they're going to be in, you put them in that place, and you go to bed and you leave them, and you let them cry, and you let them bark, and you let them yelp for as long as it takes until they settle down. And that might, some dogs, they'll learn that quickly within a few hours on the first night, and then they'll settle themselves down and go to sleep. With some dogs, it can take a week or two sometimes in the worst case scenario, but as long as you go into that approach disciplined and prepared to be able to see it through and ignore the dog and let them get over that hump and realize that actually everything's going to be okay. Usually, like I say, I tend to find 3 days is usually enough to get them to be able to quite happily settle down and calm down. Now, it's something that we talk about a lot in my Perfect Puppy course, but there's a lot of kind of overarching theory that then feeds into that. One of the main things being around how are we reinforcing the crying and barking behaviours as a whole? Are we allowing the puppy to understand that if they cry and bark in other areas and situations of the life and your relationship, it gets them what they want? So then it's a positively reinforcing behavior. So then at night time, they'll go to bed, they'll want attention, and they'll cry and bark because they've started to learn, well, in other situations, that gets me what I want. So if you want that process to go quicker, you need to, from the second you pick your puppy up, ensure that you are never accidentally reinforcing crying or barking. Any kind of crying or barking behaviors, we ignore it, or we correct and redirect to appropriate behaviors, and then we only give them positive reinforcement for being calm, relaxed, well-mannered puppies. And if you do that as an overarching approach to your relationship with your dog, you'll find that then makes them sleeping through the night process also then go much quicker. So that's kind of the tough love approach. The softy approach that I recommend for people that might not want to have to go through that process of listening to it for a couple of nights, or maybe you live in an apartment or in a terraced housing and you don't want to upset your neighbours, is that you start with the dog right next to your bed, never in the bed. I don't recommend that. I think that's something that can be done long term, but you should always teach your puppy to be okay going to sleep on their own. You don't ever want to make them only content with sleeping in the bed. So I kind of have probably for the first year a no sleeping in the bed rule, and then after that, once you know that your dog is content, well-mannered, obedient, and a perfect canine companion, if every now and again you want to let them do that, then that's at that point when I would suggest potentially considering it. But anyway, we start them next to the bed, again, either in the bed, in a crate, in a playpen, same principle of what we talked about earlier. And for the first couple of nights, we let them know that we're right there. They can hear us, they can smell us. Again, we never reinforce crying or barking behaviours, but you'll find that they'll settle down much quicker when they can literally see you. So it might mean that you have to sleep lying right on the edge of the bed and maybe hang your hand over so they can smell it and literally know and go and lick it, and they know that you're there and that they're not alone and that there's no harm going to come to them. But we should still make sure that we're not reinforcing crying or barking in any way. But you'll find that the dog will settle down much quicker in that scenario. So we might do that for the first 2 or 3 nights. Then we might move that towards the bottom of the bed so they can still hear you breathing, they can still smell that you're there, but you slowly move them away. Maybe we do that for 2 or 3 more nights. Then you move them towards the doorway between the bedroom and the landing. You do that for another few nights. Then maybe you put them out on the landing, but you leave your door open so they can still see into the bedroom. They can still smell you and probably still hear you. And then maybe we have the door half shut for a few nights, and you get the approach. Slowly but surely, we gradually move them away until eventually they're then downstairs in the room that we want them to be in, settled down, going to sleep on their own, quietly and peacefully. So they're the kind of 2 approaches that I recommend that people with new Dachshund puppies that are struggling with getting them to sleep through the night. The worst thing you can do with either of those approaches is give into it. If we give into it, all we're doing is we're reinforcing to the dog that if you cry and you bark and you keep at it and you keep crying and you keep barking, eventually we're going to give in and give you what you want. So then that way, when you do make the decision to try and nip it in the bud, the dog will go and go and go because they believe that eventually they'll be able to get you to break and get what they want. So we want to be able to really start this from day one. Now, if you have given in, you need to carry on and focus on one of these approaches the same, but just again, be aware that you've kind of made a rod for your own back and it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult. If you're in a position where you're preemptively researching this and trying to set yourself up for success, then start from day one as you mean to go on, stick to the process, and I promise you'll get there. This is one of the most difficult areas of raising a puppy, and at the time it can feel like it's never going to end and it's the worst thing that's ever happened. But if you stick with it, if you're a calm, consistent leader, like I always preach, I promise you will get there, and you will get your dog sleeping through the night nice and calmly and quietly, and you'll forget about those few bad nights that you had in the beginning to be able to get you there. So just stick at it. I promise you'll get there. I hope you found that useful. If you did, get involved down in the comment section below. If you've got any other questions, bang them down in there. We want to be making one of these videos every single week, kind of answering your questions and Dachshund specific questions, whether that's training, whether it's canine psychology, puppy development, or canine behavior. Any questions that you've got for me, we want to help you. So if you are new here as well, subscribe so that you never miss a future episode of the Fenrir Dachshund Show.